With AI being such a rapidly developing technology, there are tons of both opportunities and concerns over how it might be used in education. In fact, a recent report from the UK's Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology has detailed how it could do everything from helping teachers with lesson planning to entirely wrecking the current assessment system. So in this video, we're breaking down that report, picking out everything about how AI could change the lives of students and teachers, what could become of exams as a result of it, and what other broader issues in education that the development of AI has thrown a spotlight on. The world of AI has developed rapidly in recent years, so much so that more and more sectors are implementing it. However, one sector that's tailing slightly behind is the education sector, so there are still a lot of open questions about what the implementation of AI into education could look like. Looking through this POSTnote report, AI seems like it could touch upon almost every single facet of education. Teaching, training, admin, marking, exams, digital divides, data protection, the works. So, for the purposes of this video, we're going to condense things down into just 4 categories. AI used by teachers, AI used by learners, AI and assessments, and wider considerations. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive in. Right now, teacher workloads are too high. In fact, one survey of 10,000 teaching staff in English state schools revealed that 72% of teachers felt that it was unacceptably high. This workload issue is the biggest reason for teachers considering leaving the state school sector. In fact, 66% of teachers reported that they spent less than half of their working hours actually teaching, instead spending time on lesson planning, marking, tracking pupil data, and other administrative tasks. So, one proposed solution is to enlist AI to help relieve the burden of some of this administrative work. The proposal even has some money behind it. In October 2023, the UK government announced a £2 million investment into Oak National Academy, a free platform that provides AI-powered lesson planning resources to teachers in England. This comes as AI more broadly has some proven capabilities. It can scan text to condense it and rephrase it for age-suitable use, generate definitions for key terms found in a text, produce questions, quizzes, and model answers, even tailored towards a learner's weak points. It can automate the production of emails, reports, and seating plans. And in the future, there's scope that it could help with training as well as marking of simple questions and quizzes. But we'll get onto that into the AI and assessment section later. Now, I know the use of AI hasn't been necessarily formalized. One survey in November 2023 has suggested that these tools are being used, or at least tried out, with 42% of over 9,000 respondents saying that as teachers they had tried out AI tools to help with schoolwork at least once. These tools provide a world of possibility, and for those in the industry it can be really exciting that AI could reduce the workloads of lesson planning and of administrative tasks. There are, of course, some concerns though. AI is not perfect, and large language models, those that generate text, are prone to producing inappropriate, biased, or sometimes just outright wrong outputs. So human review would be required, which would negate some of the time savings offered up by the technology in the first place. Not only is the tool itself not perfect, but its use could be detrimental, with there being a risk of it eroding teachers' skill sets if it's overused. Plus, if the use of AI makes teachings more generalized and less personalized, there's a risk that that could strain student-teacher relationships. Overall, there is a strong case for teachers using AI. However, it's not so clear whether students should be doing the same. There has been an emergence of AI-powered teaching platforms where students can interact directly with an AI tutor, and claims that these platforms can offer more support than your typical class or lecture. Now, there are benefits to be had here, as these platforms could be more affordable and more accessible than human tutors. In fact, AI could very well increase accessibility across the board. For instance, they could be used to provide text-to-speech or speech-to-braille services for learners with either disabilities or learning difficulties. These tutors and tools will be constrained in how much additional context they can provide to lessons and in their ability to provide pastoral care, but in these use cases above, they could actually be really useful. However, misuse of AI could become a major issue. There are massive concerns that learners could develop an over-reliance on the tech, hindering critical thinking, literacy, and writing skills. Syntax and grammar of AI outputs could flatten individual writing skills, getting rid of any nuance of specific cultures and communities in favour of just a very flat English. Plus, in the arts, there's a worry that there'll be less personal creativity poured into music and art. Now, some argue that to prevent these issues, you just need to educate learners on these limitations and risks of the use of AI. In fact, encouraging users to try AI themselves might allow them to develop a balanced view of it. Plus, it will equip these new generations with the skills that AI-using workforces of the future will need. Still, it is a very careful balance to strike, and even more complex when assessments get involved. Research has shown that the latest versions of generative AI software are able to produce outputs that can, under certain circumstances, pass some school and university level assessments. That level of power risks compromising the entire exams and assessment system, especially as detection of the use of generative AI is extremely challenging and can be prone to false positives, where a learner might be falsely accused of using the tech. How do you beat this emerging threat then? Well, there are some preventative measures. Like we talked about learners becoming overly reliant on AI, open discussions about exploitation of AI and its limitations might help reduce its use. Greater support can be given to learners undertaking writing tasks so they don't feel driven towards AI. And you can set specialised assignments which are less readily completed by AI. There are some harder approaches that could be taken though. A return to invigilated handwritten exams could be made, albeit some would view this as a regressive step for accessibility. Oral examinations of students' reasoning and understanding could be implemented, albeit this poses logistical challenges at a larger scale. And similarly, observed examinations, like those used in medical teaching, could be applied, where students would undertake practical tasks in a controlled environment. Now, whilst these harder approaches might be more effective, radical changes risk causing a massive amount of disruption to students and teachers alike, so you have to strike a very careful balance. What about on the other side of the coin though? We know that AI could potentially help mark simple quizzes, but could it help mark exams and assessments on a large scale? Well, possibly. AI markers won't be affected by things like fatigue and tiredness like some human markers might be, and would to some extent have some greater agreement over answers. There are risks though that viewpoints and biases in the data that AI has been trained on could come through and narrow the range of acceptable answers. Plus, whilst human markers can give reasoning for their marking decisions, AI markers can't, and so there will be a lack of transparency. So all this together, it seems that the use of AI in exams marking might take a little longer to become widespread. Now, as AI does make its way into the education system, there are some wider considerations to be had. For instance, a lot of the evidence for the use of AI as an educational technology, edtech, is coming from edtech companies themselves, so needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. Most of the research is also only in early stages, especially considering how rapidly developing a lot of these technologies are. Now, teachers generally think AI to be positive, but aren't yet prepared for the shift. They'll need training, but also some other context issues in schools to be sorted too. One of those is the digital divide. Regional inequalities, as well as differing socioeconomic circumstances and other factors, can lead to differing levels of access to computers, internet, tablets, smartphones, and all of this is the digital divide. It existed already, but its effects are being amplified by AI. Some institutions might not have the means to effectively use AI tools. Half of English secondary schools don't have access to reliable Wi-Fi, and only 44% of secondary schools have access to laptops for in-classroom learning. Much of this comes down to budget issues, though the Department for Education has committed £200 million to connect all English schools to high-speed broadband by 2025. Still, there are fears that the greatest benefits of AI might only be able to be taken advantage of by those institutions with more money. Plus, that's just considering schools. When learners go home to their families, they again will have differing levels of access to internet, and perhaps even the premium or paid versions of AI, and so they will have differing access to tools which can help them with schoolwork from home. Finally, safety and data security has to be considered as well, especially when dealing with children. This is being tackled though. In 2023, the Digital Futures Commission published a report that laid out 3 key recommendations for how EdTech can be used in a way that protects the personal data of children and isn't detrimental to learning. First, clarity is needed over how data protection and child's rights regulations apply to EdTech tools, with high standards, transparency and compliance demanded of their creators. Second, there's a need for certification frameworks so that high value and safe tools are easily identifiable by schools when they're choosing which ones to implement. And third, there's a need for a secure data infrastructure that serves children and educational institutions that also allows for some controlled sharing of data to enable the development of further edtech tools. Following on from that last point, the use of children's work in the training of AI systems is controversial, with some asking how consent can properly be given to others saying that it is outright unlawful. As we've discussed before on the channel though, there is this conflict of how much data you give to an AI system, because on the one hand you want to protect data, but on the other hand the developments of edtech tools will improve the more information and more data is given as training. To conclude though, AI is set to potentially infiltrate almost every element of the education system, and it's our reaction to that that is going to shape how that looks like going forward. Whether we embrace the use of it for lesson planning, or whether we are actively fighting against its use and implementing measures to shield exams and assessments from AI, one way or another, things are going to change and shift in response to this developing technology. AI very well may change the face of education forever, but how exactly it does that, well, time will have to tell. That's all for this episode of the Science Fair Show. If you've made it this far, then be sure to like the video and consider subscribing for more and ringing the bell to know when they come out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.